Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something. It's a pretty complex and fascinating at the same time. It's all about this intricate connection between AI and human ethics. We're going to be looking at some excerpts from a chapter called "AI is Learning Our Morals." And let me tell you, this thing is really making me rethink a lot of things.
Yeah, it's not just a one-way street. We're not simply shaping AI, it's shaping us right back, ethically speaking.
Right, yeah. It's like we're in this ethical dance, each move kind of influencing the other. I mean, the chapter even calls it ethical coevolution. What is that all about?
So it's a pretty new idea, even for people who have been, thinking about technology and morals for a while. Imagine AI not just being a student learning ethics from us, but also having something to teach us, pushing us to evolve our own ethical frameworks in the process.
So it's not just a one-way lesson, more like a give and take, changing how we both think about right and wrong.
Exactly. Now, to understand how this works, the chapter digs into a couple of big picture ideas: socio-technical systems theory and interactive ethical alignment models. Want to try to break those down?
Yeah, let's do it. They sound a little intimidating, but I'm ready to tackle them.
Okay, so let's start with socio-technical systems theory. Think about it this way. AI doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's part of a whole web of social systems, cultural norms, existing ethical ideas. And get this, it can either strengthen those existing values or challenge them, depending on how we design it and how we use it.
So it's not just about the tech itself, it's the whole context. That makes sense. So what about this interactive ethical alignment thing?
So this one's all about trying to get AI to jibe with what we as humans consider morally right. But here's the twist. AI can throw some curveballs our way, offer up new ethical angles that might make us confront our own biases.
So one's about this big picture impact of AI on society. The other is about this direct feedback loop, shaping how we view ethics as individuals.
Got it.
But this can't all be theoretical, right?
Oh no, it's happening right now. It's all around us. Take AI and human bias, for example. You know all those algorithms that companies use for screening job applicants?
Yeah.
If they're trained on data that already reflects societal biases, let's say favoring men for certain roles historically, guess what? The AI might unintentionally perpetuate those same biases.
So even though we think of AI as this objective thing, it can actually amplify the biases we already have.
And here's where it gets even crazier. Research suggests that people sometimes change their own moral judgments based on what AI says, especially when things get ethically murky. It's almost like the AI is nudging our moral compass.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about AI actually changing how we decide what's right and wrong? That's a little unnerving.
The chapter calls this moral drift. The longer we're exposed to AI, especially if it's behaving in ways that clash with traditional morality, the more our own sense of ethics can subtly shift. Think about it. If self-driving cars start making these risk calculations that prioritize speed over being extra cautious, it might slowly change how we humans view driving safety.
Whoa. So just by interacting with AI, our own sense of what's right and wrong could drift in a whole new direction. That's a lot to process. Tell me more about this happening in the real world. It can't just be about self-driving cars, right?
No, not at all. The chapter highlights how this ethical dance is playing out in specific sectors like healthcare. Yeah, healthcare, that's a big one. AI being used for all sorts of things. Diagnosis, treatment recommendations. How is this ethical coevolution playing out in healthcare?
I mean, that's a big one, isn't it?
Imagine AI helping to identify biases in medical treatments. Let's say there's like a history of certain groups receiving less aggressive treatments. AI could flag those patterns, and then doctors could examine their decision-making processes.
So AI is like an ethical watchdog.
Yeah.
Making sure that healthcare is fair, unbiased.
Exactly. Not about replacing doctors, but giving them this tool to be more aware and make more equitable decisions.
That's amazing. Using technology to push for fairness in a system that hasn't always been that way.
Yeah.
And I know the chapter also talks about this happening in other areas too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Another fascinating example is law enforcement. Think about body cameras, police reports being analyzed by AI. These systems could be trained to spot potential biases in police interactions, even if the officers themselves aren't consciously aware of acting unfairly.
Okay, so using AI to help law enforcement identify and address potential biases.
Right, could lead to better training, fairer policies, more accountability in a system that's often criticized for lacking all three.
That makes sense. What about the corporate world? I feel like there's a lot of potential for AI to impact things there, especially when it comes to things like hiring.
Oh, absolutely. So many companies are using AI-powered tools for things like screening resumes, conducting interviews. But here's the catch. If those tools are trained on data that reflects historical biases, guess what? They might unintentionally perpetuate those biases.
Thus history repeating itself. But through algorithms this time?
Exactly. Let's say historically men have been favored for leadership roles. An AI trained on that data might learn to prioritize male candidates, even if a company's actively trying to build a more diverse leadership team.
So even with the best intentions, companies could be undermining their own diversity efforts.
Yeah, if they're not careful about how they're using AI. Exactly. That's why it's so crucial to have humans in the loop, double-checking these systems, making sure they're not perpetuating harmful biases. The good news is AI can also be used to help companies identify those biases and then take steps to mitigate them. It's a complex dance. But with careful attention, AI can be a powerful tool for a more just and equitable workplace.
Okay, that's a bit more hopeful. Sounds like we need to be super mindful about how we're training and using these AI systems. And it's not just the workplace, right? What about how we're interacting online?
Social media is a prime example. How AI is not only moderating content, but also subtly influencing user behavior. Think about those AI systems that flag hate speech or bullying. They're not just removing harmful content, they're also kind of sending a message to users, encouraging them to reconsider their actions.
So AI is nudging us towards more ethical behavior online.
Exactly. It can get even more nuanced. Imagine personalized nudges. Based on a user's history, let's say someone consistently posts inflammatory content. The AI could respond with links to articles that promote empathy and understanding. Encourage that user to see things from a different perspective.
Like having a virtual therapist, guiding us towards better online behavior. It makes sense. AI is already playing a huge role, filtering the information we see online.
Right. It can help us sift through the noise, make more informed choices about what we consume, what we share. For example, some platforms are using AI to flag content that comes from questionable sources, or that's been debunked by fact-checkers. It's about giving us tools to be more discerning in a world, overflowing with information.
And that's a huge deal, especially with all the misinformation out there. It seems like this whole idea of ethical coevolution is really about AI pushing us to be more thoughtful, not just about the technology itself, but about our own behavior, choices.
I completely agree. And what's so fascinating is that AI can act as a mirror, reflecting back our own moral blind spots. It can highlight inconsistencies between what we say we believe and how we actually act.
Like calling us out on our hypocrisy.
Yeah.
That'd be uncomfortable.
It can be, but it's incredibly valuable. Imagine a company claiming to value diversity, but their AI hiring system shows they're unintentionally favoring certain demographics. That kind of feedback can be a powerful motivator for change. Or think about AI flagging potential bias in law enforcement. Could force officers to confront their own unconscious biases, work towards a more equitable system.
So AI isn't just learning from us. It's helping us to learn about ourselves, even the parts we might not want to see.
Exactly. And by embracing that feedback, we can use AI as a tool for self-reflection and ethical growth, bridge the gap between our ideals and our actions, becoming more aligned with the values we truly want to uphold.
Wow, that's a powerful idea. AI is a catalyst for personal and societal evolution. But this all makes me wonder, what happens when AI's ethics start to clash with our own?
That's where things get really interesting. Yeah, it is kind of a head-scratcher, isn't it? What happens when AI starts making these decisions that don't quite line up with our human sense of right and wrong?
Yeah, I mean, where do we even begin to unpack that?
Well, those self-driving cars are a good place to start. Imagine a scenario where an autonomous vehicle has to make a split-second decision to avoid an accident. It might calculate that the safest course of action, from like a purely statistical standpoint, involves a minor collision. That injures a pedestrian.
Oh, that's tough. As a human, I feel like we'd probably swerve to avoid hitting a person, even if it meant putting ourselves at risk.
Right, but an AI programmed to prioritize minimizing overall harm might make a different call. And that's where things get really ethically complex. I mean, whose ethics do we prioritize? The human driver's instinct to protect human life at all costs, or the AI's cold, hard calculation of minimizing overall harm?
So it's not just about teaching AI to be ethical. It's about figuring out how to navigate these situations where AI's logic might lead to outcomes that just feel wrong to us as humans.
Yeah, that's why this whole idea of ethical coevolution is so important. It's not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing conversation, a constant process of learning and adaptation as AI gets more and more sophisticated, integrated into our lives.
Or it's like we're figuring out the rules as we play the game, and those rules might need to change as AI continues to evolve.
Precisely. And we need to be asking ourselves some tough questions. What happens when AI starts challenging our deeply held moral beliefs? Are we willing to adapt our own ethics in response to AI's way of thinking? Or do we draw a hard line and say, nope, certain human values are non-negotiable?
It's like AI is forcing us to really examine those values we've always taken for granted
And decide what's truly important to us.
as humans.
Yeah, and that's where I see the potential for AI, to be this catalyst for ethical growth. Both individually and as a society, it can push us to have those tough conversations, confront our biases, work towards building a future where AI and human values are aligned in a way that benefits everyone.
It's not about fearing AI or trying to control it. It's about recognizing its potential to make us more aware, more thoughtful, maybe even more ethical.
Exactly, and it requires us to be proactive, not reactive. We need to be actively involved in shaping this ethical framework of AI, rather than just letting it unfold on its own.
It's a collaboration, a dance where both partners are learning, evolving together. Who knows, maybe through this process of ethical coevolution, we'll discover something new, not just about AI, but about ourselves, what it really means to be human in this rapidly changing world.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's a very exciting, albeit challenging time to be alive.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, but I hope this has given you all plenty to think about as we navigate this this brave new world of AI and human ethics.
It's been a pleasure joining you.
As always. And a huge thank you to all of you for listening. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to explore the source material. Keep those ethical gears turning.